Everything should be nice and set up. Okay, well, let me just get this all switched over. So, oop, that's not what I wanted. Stop it. Okay, there we go. Alright, well, welcome back, guys. We are continuing on with the time walk painting. And, I don't know. It's funny because it's like I frequently, I do these streams. And hey, Braden, how's it going, man? Good to see you. I frequently do these paintings, and it's really funny because, it'll be like I'll do like a stream or oh, that's okay, Braden. Don't even worry about it. I appreciate you being here. It's all good. Thanks so much for stopping in and staying for as long as you can. Wrath of Wood, hey, how's it going? You're starting to be a regular here. I really like it. It's very cool that I have my tiny little fan base going on. It's very nice. I like it. Um, so what I was saying was that it's really funny because I do these paintings, and what'll happen is I'll try to do like one or two of these streams each week, but then I have like frequently like a week almost of like downtime without like working on it. And it's really funny because I walk by my art table and all that, and I kind of look at each piece I'm working on, with it half finished, and I start getting all sorts of new weird ideas of what I want to do with it. And it's actually really funny because I'll brainstorm a bunch of ideas while I'm looking at it, and then like some I'll kind of hold on to for a while, and some I'll throw away right away, and then other times I'll like hold on to them for a little bit, and then kind of throw them away at the last minute for something else. So I had some ideas that to add a couple more details than what I originally wanted to do when I first started working on this piece. Um, One of the main things was that I said that I only wanted to do one of these little guys, but now I'm kind of feeling like I was thinking about it multiple different times across this week. Was I kind of want to like add like a second guy like over here? And thank you, email, for letting me know that I am streaming. Yeah, thank you. Hey, just to let you know, did you know that you are streaming right now? No, I didn't know that, Google. Thank you for letting me know. Anyways, I kind of want to like add like another guy on this side. I kind of had some ideas of like whether he should be like pushing the arrow or something. I'm not totally sure what I want to do, if anything at all. Like I kind of want to just focus on the original details that I wanted to do, which is like I want to fill in all of this area and all this area down here, and kind of add like I had this idea for like a sunrise and like some grass and like some flowers and some little plants and things like that. And I kind of want to just immediately like work on that first. And then kind of add like the little guy second or like later or something like that. But one of the ideas that I thought would look really cool, just to kind of give like the two different little skeleton dudes kind of their own distinct appearance, is I had this idea of like having the second guy with his like back pushed up against the minute hand, like he was like pushing like as much force as he could into the little minute hand. So like to the point of where he's like got his back up against it and he's like trying to shove it back with his with his whole back strength. And I thought that might look kind of cool. But I'm not 100% sure whether or not I want to do it yet. So, I kind of want to just really focus on these areas to start with today, and we'll see where we go from there. Which is going to be really fun because now I get to like really mess around with some brighter colors. I really want to work on the sunrise in particular, and I've done a couple of paintings in the past where I actually did do sunrises, and let me see. I'm going to kind of bring them up real quick so I can kind of look at them to give myself a good idea of what I want. Which they're fun. Like, I love doing, like, sunrises and sunsets and things like that. But they're also, like, they're really bright and colorful, but I also try to kind of, like, I don't know, get, like, certain appearances to them. Because, like, a lot of the time when you do, like, sunrises and sunsets, they do all these interesting things with, like, clouds and things like that. Like, the clouds are, like, purplish and pinkish, and they have some orange in there, and so forth, things like that. So I kind of want to have some pieces to reference that I've done before. I'm looking at one that is definitely a sunset, and I'm looking at another one that was definitely a sunrise. And I've done these before. Like, I'm actually referencing my DeviantArt page to kind of give me an idea of what I want to do, because I've done them in the past. Um, like, I'm the kind of person who likes to. All right, Braden, thanks so much for stopping by, dude. I appreciate it. You do your thing. I assume you have to go to work or something like that. So you make all that money, man. You take it easy, okay? Thanks for stopping by. Um, but yeah, I frequently I'm a kind of person who and I'm like working on it because I want to change this, which is I'm really good at looking at art and like other pictures and things like that, and then taking what they are and replicating it or like emulating it kind of into like my own pieces and things like that. Like I'm really good at basically like looking at something that already exists, visualizing it, and then recreating it in my own paintings and my own artwork and things like that. Um, but I really have a rough time when I'm trying to create something completely from imagination. Like I have like some ability to do that relatively well. For like I do have some pieces where I've completely imagined something and was able to replicate exactly what I was imagining in my artwork. But it's still kind of tough for me. It's something that I'm constantly working on. I'm actually looking into um, some like lessons to teach me a bit more on how to do stuff like that, how to visualize an idea and then properly put it down in my own artwork and things like that. So that's something that I really want to work on and practice more. But that's kind of something I have to do in my own downtime because I mean there might be some things where I can. I am going to be changing up the kind of artwork I do on my channel soon. I have something that's happening. I'm not going to talk about it right now too much, but I have a particular piece of art that I'm going to be working on fairly soon, and it's not going to be like necessarily magic cards. So things are going to be changing a bit around on this channel, and I do like the fact that I am looking into doing different kinds of artwork and things like that because I really want to like I like magic cards and painting them because it's kind of like my comfort zone for art, and I really want to step out of my comfort zone and kind of do more things. So you guys are probably going to be seeing some of that stuff relatively soon in the future because I do have a big project coming up fairly soon that I'm really excited about. But I have to kind of figure it out a little bit more before I really get into it. So, let's go ahead and start working on some colors here. So, I'm going to get this guy out of the way. I just wanted to have it to start with to remind you guys, obviously, what we're working on. I mean, I figured you guys probably remembered, so. But let me get that out of the way, and we'll start dishing up some paint here. Let me kind of zoom this out. There we go. Okay, none of my brushes are wet. Okay, that's fine. Let me see. I think that oh, this is gonna be tough. So I kind of have to work with some blues to start with, I guess. Maybe some blue and some purple. Lighter blues. Kind of figuring out where to start. I might have to whip out the Phthalo green. Because that usually, like, my green is really good for helping me get the bluish sky color to be more balanced and things like that. So you know what? We'll start with that. That's how we'll start this all out. So I'm gonna get some blue going here. Let me take a sip of coffee. I always need my coffee. I don't think you guys will ever see me do a stream without coffee. I love coffee. It's so good. Delicious. Okay. Yeah, so we'll start with some blue and some green to get this going because I really want to focus, like, obviously I want to focus on the sunrise sky that I'm talking about. And that's the thing too, is that like I did mention that I have to use this green. Well, this is a blue, but I'm talking about this green right here. I use this for all my blue. It's like kind of become this regular habit for me. And I mean, for all of you guys who have hung out in my streams before, you guys pretty much probably know the whole story of why I use this green all the time now. It's I do have another blue over here that I'm waiting to crack into. But I have to run out of that one first. And so what's really interesting is that this particular blue might change up my whole thing about requiring this Patholo green to do all my blues. But I haven't actually experimented with this new blue yet at all. So I have no idea like how it's going to look on my art at all. So I don't like to use very much of this green. I kind of look at this green like this green is like valuable, so it's like it's much more valuable than these other paints that I use. So I always try to use it very sparingly. Where's my favorite towel? Oh, it's under my phone. Okay. I was like, where the hell did I put that? I had to get a new paper towel because my other one was just smeared, completely smeared in paint to a point of where it was just unusable. So I finally had to move on and get a new one. So I have my blue here. Let me get just the tiniest amount of this green. Like I said, I don't like using it very much. It's very it's a very expensive paint, and so I don't like to use it in large amounts. And what's really nice too is that with how I use this green, I barely ever use it. And I definitely, when I do use it, I generally don't have to use very large amounts of it. Like, you'll probably notice I just put like a teeny tiny smear there. It's pretty much like there's pretty much no like none of it on there, just enough to mix my colors. And I don't think I've really had, I think there's only been one time where I actually used this green without mixing it with another color, and that was when I was doing the Winged Codal card, which I think is really beautiful because it's got all those bright greens and bright blue colors. And I think that there was a portion on that particular painting that where I needed the green, this particular kind of green. And so I just used it straight on the card, and it looked great. Like, it really did. It's a bluish green, just a little for extra flavor. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. It's just got this, like, I don't know. I really like the Patholo green because it's, like, it's really good. Like, it's kind of like a color enhancer almost. Like, I barely ever use it as an actual color. I generally use it to enhance other colors, and like I said, I frequently will, you know, mix it with my blues. It's really good at making the blue into, it does a whole bunch of things. Like, when you like, depending, it can first of all lighten up your blue color so that it's not super dark, so you can use it for like blue skies and things like that. But the main thing that makes this green so fantastic is that when you mix it like just the right amount with like the dark blue color, it gives you this beautiful seafoam green color for like an ocean. And it's like, when I used to paint islands and things like that, my blues would always come out not looking the right color. They would always be either too dark or too light. Like, they never had the right tone for like a proper blue in an island card, which is really weird because, you know, you look at the island cards and you're just like, oh, it's just blue. It's just blue everywhere. And it's like, but it's a certain kind of blue, and it's like all of those blues have the same, sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm looking out my window, and one of my neighbors is doing something weird in their window. And I was like, what is going on over there? But anyways, yeah, it's, a lot of the islands require this very bluish green color, and it's like, you can't really see that greenish color in the artwork of most of the islands until you compare it to like this kind of dark blue. Like, you can't really see it until it's like right next to each other, like the colors. Like, you would like I would do an island and I would start extending the art out with the blue color, and then you'd be like, oh, like, it's not the right color, and then you would try and change it with some of the other colors, like maybe you'll add yellow, and then it's like, oh, well, now it's too green. And then you add white, and it's like, oh, now it's, you know, like a baby blue, and it's really weird. So I just kind of got used to always using this green whenever I need a bluish color. and that makes it a lot easier to handle. Like it just makes my blues do what I want them to do, which is pretty interesting because I have this red and this yellow, and the red and yellow are awesome. Like I barely ever need to like add like I mean obviously I'll add other colors to them. Like I can add the red and yellow to get like a really nice sharp orange color, and then I can add white to like change up the hue of that orange color based on what I'm working on. And like so the red and yellow like they work wonderfully together. And like if I need a purple, I can mix my blue and my red together and I get like, you know, different shades of purple that I can alter based on what I need. So like a majority of the colors work really well together and I barely ever have problems with the red or the yellow. But whenever I need a blue color, like a solid blue color that works well with a lot of the art on a lot of the different cards, this blue just doesn't want to cooperate. Like you have to like literally, like I said, I had to get this special green just to make the blue work the way that I need it to work. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of start mixing some blue here. Um, I know it looks fine to you guys, but it's actually very dark in my room. I'm planning on buying some lighting, some lights pretty soon that are specifically designed so that I can see clearly in my room, but it also won't mess up the lighting on the, you know, in the camera for you guys, so there's not very much glare. I just have to actually do that. I think I might, maybe I'll put in an order for it, like, tonight or something. I don't know. I just kind of was getting really distracted with a whole bunch of other things, and it kind of slips my mind. And it's like one of those things where you don't really think about it until it's like right in front of you. Like here I am right now, and I'm like, oh god, it's so dark in my room, but it looks so fine on the camera. I need to get those lights. I totally forgot. So that's something I need to do. But until then, I'm just gonna have to deal with it, which is fine. And the weather outside is not very nice today either, so it's like I can't really. Um, I don't know. It's weird. It's like it was raining earlier today, but it's like it only rained for a very short amount of time, so it didn't really stick around too well. Okay, so I got this green, and we're just gonna kind of throw it into this blue. I'm gonna just kind of mix it here, and I can't really tell if it's the right shade right away. I already know that it's too dark to do what I want it to do, so I'm obviously going to have to add some white to it to get it to, you know, be that blue sky kind of color, you know? I mean, I bet you that if I were painting like water, this would look great, but it's for a sky, it's way too dark, so we're going to have to change that up, which is not a problem. So I'm going to put some over here on this side. I kind of like to have my colors, like half them, so that I can like reuse a color that I've already achieved later for something else if I need to. So I just kind of split it in half there, and we're going to wet the brush. I got to talk about this one thing that I've been like... Have you guys ever had a situation where like you randomly become like obsessed with like one magic card for like no reason, and like you can't stop thinking about it? Like I've had this like one single magic card on my mind for like the past like 2 or 3 days, and like it's also a situation where the card is really really expensive, so it's I've gotten like that before with other cards, and normally what happens is like I get really obsessed with a card, and then I go out and I buy the card, and then I stop feeling so obsessed with it. And but this one card that I'm like really obsessed with right now is like almost like $40 for a single copy of it, which is way out of my price range. It's way out of my price range. But it's like I can't stop thinking about it because I kind of get into these like mindsets where I become with like with a lot of different magic cards. I've been craving a Murderous Rider alt art. Ooh, yeah. Do they make those alternates? Like, because Murderous Rider's cool. I've seen that card, and I think it's very cool. But I don't know if they actually make altered art for it. If they do, that's really cool. I would like to see that. I'll be honest, the Murderous Rider art, it looks good. It's just not the best like art that I think they could do for that card. Um, I like the whole thing where it's like its horse is a skeleton, which is really cool, and they did a great job with that. But I feel like the overall appearance of it is kind of wonky. But I think they could do really good with it if it had fancy. Oh, I see. Did they actually give it different art, or is it just the border that's different for that card? Um, yeah, Murderous Rider is so powerful. It's such a strong card. Um, I'm kind of surprised. Like, I mean, I kind of like it makes sense that it's like I'm surprised that it's not a mythic rare, but at the same time, it's like I can kind of understand why it's not a mythic rare. Um, because like it has so much like it's one of those cards where it's like its utility is extremely important in the game, and it probably provides a lot of balance to the meta of Eldraine and all that. But I mean, at the same time, like it's more or less like it's a reusable removal in a sense. I mean, I will admit the whole like people are saying like how the being able to shuffle the card back into your deck makes it really powerful, but in my opinion, that actually makes it weaker. Um, Now, if the card were to like die and then go into like the graveyard, it would be busted. It would be totally busted because there's so many ways to pull it back out of your graveyard. So I think that the fact that it gets shuffled into your into your library gives it more balance. So, because that way, you know, if you really wanted to get it, you'd have to get something that could like tutor it out of your deck, which is not really something that's very available at the moment, I guess. I mean, I guess there's kind of like I think like isn't that card Do Unto Evil in Ravnica? Like that's still a functional card right now, so I guess you could probably do something like that maybe. I don't know. But yeah, that's a cool card. I so the card that I'm like obsessed with right now is a card from Magic's past, like relatively recent past. It's not super old. By the way, I have this blue here, and I think I like it, so I think I'm going to try and run with it. And if I need to change it, I will. But let's test it out. Um, so the card that I'm currently obsessed with, and it's like I can't get it out of my head, is have you guys ever seen the card Batterskull from New Phyrexia? I have this like it's like I mean so I played a little bit during New Phyrexia. Sadly, I didn't play much of New Phyrexia, which is actually something I kind of regret because New Phyrexia is like one of my favorite sets of all time. And I want to say that while New Phyrexia was when that was a set in standard or whatever, I probably bought maybe a total of 5 to like 10 booster packs of that set total. And that was during a time where I was still relatively young. And, like, I mean, you know, I was out of high school when that set was out, but I wasn't making lots of money like I am now. So, you know, it was during a time where I didn't really have the ability to, like, spend lots of money on Magic. So I sadly was not really able to, like, for example, I remember when that set was out and I really wanted to buy a booster box of it. And I never got the chance to do it because I just didn't have that money available to me at that time. And so, I mean, I ended up buying something like 5 to like 10 booster packs of that set total. And I did get some good stuff out of it. Like, I actually, like, I've told the story of how I opened up, like, 2 copies of, what's it called? I think it's called like spinal extraction or cranial extraction, which is apparently a $50 card now. Like, whoa. Um, like I will never forget when I was talking with who was it? I think it was Death the Kid, and we were talking about really powerful decks, and I was showing him off my this deck that I have that wins in like 3 turns. And it's really cool because it not only wins in 3 turns, but it also prevents anybody else from stopping the deck from winning in 3 turns, or even winning themselves before 3 turns are up. And so it's really degenerate. And I was explaining this deck to him, and I was showing it off to him, and like I didn't really understand like I knew that like I was kind of like showing off because I have like 4 copies of Yawgmoth's Bargain, and I was like, check it out, I got 4 copies of Yawgmoth's Bargain in it. Isn't that cool? And he was like, dude, you have like 4 copies of like it's either Spinal Extraction or Cranial Extraction. He's like, you have like 4 copies of Cranial Extraction in here, and I'm like, yeah, so the deck needs it to prevent other things from happening. Like, that's a staple in the deck. Like, you need it. Who cares? And he's like, dude, that's a $50 card, and you have 4 of them. And I was like, what? I was like, what? Who made this card $50? What the hell? And he's like, yeah, dude, that card is extremely, extremely valuable. I was like, what? Who did this? Why is this happening? The reason why I bring that up is because, I, like, 2 of those 4 copies of that card, I opened up in 2 of, like, my 6 or 10 booster packs of New Phyrexia. And, I mean, I remember thinking it was an awesome card, but at the same time, like, it wasn't, like, at that time, it wasn't, like, the most powerful broken card ever printed. Like, you know, it definitely wasn't worth $50. And I know that for sure because I told you I have 4 copies of it. 2 of them I opened in boosters, but the other 2 I bought online. And if I remember correctly, when I bought them online, and this was like years ago, I bought my 2 other Cranial Extractions, or whatever they're called, for like something like $2 or $5 a piece, or something like that. And it was literally because, like I said, like I had this deck and it needed 2 more copies of it, so I was like, I'll just buy 2 more. Oh, they're like $2 or $5, whatever. You know, it didn't matter. And then, I think what he was explaining to me was that there was some kind of combo that came out that made it so that, like, there was a combo that required the Cranial Extraction or whatever, and once that combo came out, it was like missing 1 combo piece or something. And, like, once they printed that combo piece, it made, like, that card shoot through the roof. Like, it just made it obscenely expensive. Which I think is freaking crazy. Like, $50 for a card like that is kind of ludicrous to me, but whatever. Obviously, I'm not buying any more copies of that card, that's for sure. But I don't need them because I have 4 of them, so it's whatever. But anyways, I got so distracted talking about that. That's the thing, I go on these rants about something and then they diverge into like something like 3 or 4 different topics. Surgical Extraction, that's what it's called, thank you. Yeah, Surgical Extraction, that's the card. Well, if you have a foil one, that's probably worth like way more. Like, that's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if like a foil Surgical Extraction is like $100 or something like that. Some ludicrous price like that or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's a really, like, I mean, and it's a strong card. Like, it's always been a strong card. Like, even when I got those 2 in those booster packs back in New Phyrexia, I knew it was a powerful card. It's just that, like, I didn't really, like, I knew that I needed it for the deck I was building, but it wasn't like this thing where it's like, oh, this is obviously going to be worth $50 in the future. Like, that never, ever crossed my mind. But yeah, I mean, I would look the price up on that because I feel like that, like a foil Surgical Extraction is probably worth like something like $100 or some stupid ass number like that. But anyways, I got really distracted. What I was talking about was I opened up some packs of New Phyrexia, but I never got to open up like all that I wanted. Like I wanted a booster box of New Phyrexia. Like that's like. New Phyrexia is like one of my favorite sets of all time, even though I barely got to play it. And the thing is that I adore that set because it's like that set was made in a time when like Wizards of the Coast was like a lot more open to really interesting ideas and things like that. Like, I feel like nowadays they just kind of have, like, a formula that they follow with just about everything. And, like, And the thing is too is that like that formula is like boring because they're so afraid of like um changing things up, and they have like this kind of agenda that they don't want to like violate or anything like that. And like doing something like, for example, like I always say, like New Phyrexia is a set that will never happen ever again, ever. Like in all of the history of Magic, like from here on out, New Phyrexia is a set that will never ever happen again. I actually think that in the future there will be a set where they actually go back to New Phyrexia. And like I do, because I mean there was one of the things that I thought was really interesting about the uh, the Dominaria storyline is that a large amount of what was happening in the storyline of Dominaria was all about Karn trying to basically he rebuilt the I think it was called the Golgothian Silex. And I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. I know it has the name Silex in it, but I can't remember if it was called Golgothian or something like that. I think it was called the Golgothian Silex. And the whole storyline with that was that he um, basically rebuilt the Golgothian Silex so that he can take it back to New Phyrexia so that he can blow up all of New Phyrexia. Like, that's his goal. And, like, I thought that was really interesting. Like, and that also basically, because that was a part of the storyline in Dominaria, that basically said to me that there is going to be a set in the future where they are going to go back to New Phyrexia and they're going to try and destroy it. And so when I'm saying that like the set that was New Phyrexia is something that will never happen again, what I mean by that is that I do think they will go back to New Phyrexia, but the way that the actual storyline and the set itself of what New Phyrexia was is something itself that will never happen again. And the reason why is because New Phyrexia, like the storyline of the Scars of Mirrodin, Mirrodin Besieged, and New Phyrexia was a story about the villains winning, 100% winning, and not being defeated in any sense of the word whatsoever. And like it's like, oh well, like in Amonkhet the villains won, and it's like no, like no, it's absolutely not the same thing at all, because the villain, like in Amonkhet, um, Nicol Bolas won in Amonkhet, and then blew it all up. He blew everything to shit. He destroyed all of Amonkhet. Like, and it was really sad because like Amonkhet as like what it was, which is like the genius behind the overall build of the storyline behind what Amonkhet was, is that Nicol Bolas managed to turn an entire plane of existence into a human zombie factory. Like, he turned an entire plane of existence into basically a giant weapon factory, which was so cool. Like, that's so cool for a villain to do. And like they ruined it. He was like, "Oh, well, I've done everything I wanted to do, so I guess I don't need this weapon factory anymore." And he just blows it all to shit. And then it's so funny because they had this huge complex storyline where he goes through all this effort to like build a giant Palanir weapons factory, and then he blows it all up because he doesn't need it anymore, because he's got all the power and all the weapons and all the stuff he needs. And then he goes to Ravnica and he loses. Like, he just loses. With like little to no effort. He gets his ass handed to him in Ravnica. And it was like one of the things is like, okay, well, like, sure enough, like, it makes sense that they want him to lose. Okay, sure. But, like, couldn't you have at least, like, let him, like, win, like, 2 or 3 times? Like, send him to Ravnica and, like, blow it all up. And then send him to, like, another plane of existence and blow it all up. And then send him to, like, a third plane of existence and then whoop his ass. That would have been so good. It would have been so good. And it's like they didn't. They just were like you get to have Amonkhet, and then you get to blow it all up, and then you get to lose immediately. Like it's so stupid. But see, here's the thing you'll learn about me is that I love good villains. I'm a big fan of good villains. And when I was a little kid, my dad used to tell me something that I took so seriously as a little kid. My dad used to tell me a superhero or like a hero of any kind is only as powerful as what the villains make him to be. So, like, in other words, if your villains are lame and boring and like easy to beat and like don't mean anything, in retrospect your heroes are boring because your heroes can only be as powerful as how strong your villains are, because your hero has to overcome whatever challenge the villain is providing, and the weaker the villain, the easier the challenge, therefore the weaker the hero. So, like, I love really good villains. And to me, Phyrexia in general has always been the best villain in all of Magic. Like, and I mean Phyrexia as a whole. Not like all of everything involving Phyrexia, which goes as far back as I think the first mentioning of Phyrexia was Antiquities, I think. I want to say, because I know that the first mentioning of Urza was actually in Alpha and Beta. That's when they first came up with Urza, was way back in the very first sets of Magic. But I don't think that Phyrexia came around until Antiquities. I want to say maybe that was the Dark before or after Antiquities? Because I think there were some Phyrexian cards in the Dark too. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I love Phyrexia. I love everything about it. And it's like, the thing that makes Phyrexia so cool to me is that, like, Phyrexia overall is just an immortal entity of pure evil. It's excuse me, my nose is a little runny. I'm not sure, but I think I might be getting sick. Hopefully not. But the thing that makes Phyrexia so cool to me is that, like, no matter how many times you blow up Phyrexia, it'll never stop. And that's what makes it so cool to me, because, like, Phyrexia is like this. I always kind of looked at Phyrexia as, like, if you guys have seen, like, the movie The Thing, like, The Thing is like an alien entity that is comprised of a bunch of sentient cellular organisms. So, like, it's like the entirety of the alien that is the Thing is actually a buildup of sentient cells, sentient alien cells that all, like, operate and, like, do their own thing, but, like, they all work together to create the alien that they are. And, like, that's basically, like, what Phyrexia is it's like, because, like, the core of Phyrexia is that it's like this evil, like, cellular organism that is comprised at its core of basically the black oil. It's the ichor, the pithecus, and it's got a bunch of different forms. Like, there's the gas. It comes out as radiation. Like, it's basically, it starts as radiation. It then shifts into a gaseous form, which is basically what pithecus is, and then it eventually becomes the ichor, which is like, well, the ichor, it's like two different things, because there's the oil and the ichor. The oil is like the actual, like, cellular organism, and then the ichor is like the, like, byproduct of the oil. So it's like, and it's so cool because it's like, no matter, and there's also, like, part of the pithecus too is that it's also a fungus. So it's like, for example, like the Mycosynth lattice. The Mycosynth lattice is just basically a gigantic Phyrexian fungus that spews out like poisonous spores that, like, organic life forms inhale, and then as they're inhaling it, or also they absorb it into their pores, and as they inhale it, they're changed on a molecular level to basically become a meshing of like flesh and metal. It's super cool. And it's like that's what I always thought was so interesting about Phyrexia is because like you can't stop it. Like that's what makes it so cool to me. You can't stop it. And like it's one of those things where it's like when they designed like the whole storyline of New Phyrexia, it was this 100% clear situation where it was like this is the ultimate evil and it's gonna win. And there's nothing that can be done about it. And that's what made that set so cool to me. The mycosynth lettuce, yes. Watch out, you might summon friggin' why is his name slipping my mind all of a sudden? Romaine. You might summon Romaine into here. I always thought that was really cool though, and like what was so cool about the mycosynth lattice in as a card in the original Mirrodin block is that flavorfully it perfectly represented what it was in Phyrexia because it says like the card turns everything into an artifact, which is actually what the fungus does in the storyline. It literally like it spreads its spores, which are by the way the part of the process of turning like organic flesh into Phyrexian metal. So like that's literally like what it was. And it was so cool because like when you see that card, like that's what I always thought was really like this is what in my opinion makes this stuff kind of so cool is like when you see that card, you don't immediately think of Phyrexia. Like that's not what it makes you think of. Like you think like, "Oh, it's an artificial world and like in the, being around this, weird artifact of some sort that we don't understand, it's turning all organic flesh into metal." And it's like it was just really cool. Like I love that stuff. So I do have to stop and kind of talk about this. So I got my blue here, which is looking pretty good. I'm very happy with it. But now we have to establish. I got to set up some yellows and some oranges and a little bit of red and probably some pink to kind of like get the sunrise appearance. So we're gonna bring the palette back over. But my overall point is that like New Phyrexia will never happen again because they Wizards of the Coast doesn't want to really tell stories about villains completely winning. And that's the thing because like I said, like yeah, there's the resistance that's left over on New Phyrexia that are doing everything they can to like win. But the thing is that makes it so beautiful and tragic in its own special way for storytelling. Everything the resistance does on New Phyrexia, it's completely futile. Like it's totally futile. There's nothing they can do to bring, to stop Phyrexia from owning New Phyrexia. There's just nothing that can be done about it. And but I mean, they'll be more than happy to go back to New Phyrexia to tell you the story of how Karn blows it all to shit and makes everything better and rainbows and happiness and fuzzy puppies, and that's the kind of story they want to tell you. They want to tell you like how like, oh, evil doesn't dominate, But I mean, I loved New Phyrexia because it was like one of those few times where you get to totally see like a truly unstoppable evil force like actually like winning. And the thing is that they did it through really good dynamic storytelling. Like it wasn't just like at that time where like it was just, oh, the villains just win and that's just how it does. Like there was a very like well done, carefully told story about like why it became the way that it was. And it was really sad. Like it was fascinating, it was tragic, it was evil. Like watching like Mirrodin slowly descend into becoming New Phyrexia. and I loved that. Like, and that's the thing too, is that like for anybody who has read like the actual like books and stuff like that, um, it was always planned for like all the way back to the very first Mirrodin block. Like I'm talking about like Mirrodin, Darksteel, and Fifth Dawn. It was always planned for like Mirrodin to become New Phyrexia, like all the way back to that far. Um, and that was so cool because like the first thing that they did to tell you that like this is like doomed to happen like was first of all the whole thing about Karn. Karn created Mirrodin. In fact, actually, it wasn't even called Mirrodin. It was actually called something else that I can't remember the name of. It wasn't until it was actually the person who named Mirrodin was actually what's his name? The crazy bad guy in the first set of stories. It was oh god, why can't I remember his name? The crazy artifact dude who was like kidnapping all the people and putting them on Mirrodin. I just and it was Karn who created him too. I just can't think of his name. But like well, I can't think of the name, but so the thing that of why it was called Mirrodin is because that character, the villain of that storyline, he like it was actually a stroking of his own ego to call the plane Mirrodin, because that character was actually a sentient Mirari from like if anybody knows the whole story about the Mirari is basically a magical artifact that can like make wishes come true. And the whole thing was that he was creating as a sentient creature, he was creating his own wishes to come true on Mirrodin. And he named it Mirrodin after the Mirari, which is what he actually was. He was a Mirari, so he named it Mirrodin. And so it was totally a stroke of his ego to change the name. I can't even remember the name of what the actual plane was called, but it wasn't called Mirrodin. It was called something else. That Karn actually named it. And I'm setting up I'm trying to think of like the color. I put out some yellow. I need some red is what I need. But yeah, and the whole thing about that was that like it was so interesting because for anybody who knows the whole deal with Karn, so Karn was like infected with Phyrexian oil. Like it was in his body. I think it was like in his heart or something like that. And he was infected by it. And what happened was when he went and he created Mirrodin, he like basically like the oil escaped, like the Phyrexian oil escaped his body in the process of like him creating the dimension of Mirrodin. And it basically seeped into the core of Mirrodin and started infecting Mirrodin from the inside out. And like after he had, and that's also what created basically like the microsynth lattice. The microsynth lattice was growing in the core of Mirrodin, and basically the oil had infected the core, and it spawned the fungus, the mycosynth, and then the mycosynth started producing spores and making everything on the plane that wasn't already metal into metal. And the whole thing too was that the character, I feel so bad that I can't think of his name. The character that was the sentient Mirari. By all means, I mean anybody who is in the chat who can remember the name of this stupid character that I can't remember the name, by all means speak up. But if not, it's okay. Don't worry about it. But basically what happened was the oil was seeping out of the core and starting to like infect and like bubble up to the surface. And the character, the evil guy, who was not evil at the time, he basically touched the oil and it infected him, and that's what made him go crazy. And that's when he started kidnapping organic life forms from other dimensions and other planes. And then he would have those organic humanoids and creatures and whatever moving into the plane, which was also the will of Phyrexia. They were basically like Phyrexia wanted him to bring these organic life forms over to. Hey, Rebecca, good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Um, Basically, it was Phyrexia's will to have this character kidnapping organic life forms from other planes and having them live on Mirrodin, specifically so that they could become infected with the Phyrexian sickness so that they can become subjects of Phyrexia, which would also begin the process of what is called completion. Um, and like I said, the Mycosynth lattice assisted in that in the sense that it was uh, like turning organic flesh into metal and things like that. And then the whole thing is that once it really took off, like they defeated the character that I can't remember the name of, sure, and they were like, oh, the tyranny is over and he's gone and we defeated him. But if you guys have read the books, at the very end, there's this great part of the book. It's like the best thing ever. Is they have this moment where one of the characters walks up to the Quicksilver Sea, and it's so good. He walks up to the Quicksilver Sea, and there's like streams of water coming from the Quicksilver Sea and kind of like going all over the place, and there's a part where he kind of looks down and he sees oil, the black oil bubbling up from the land and starting to like go into the streams which are going in towards the Quicksilver Sea. And there's a whole scene, it's like at the very end of like the last book, I think it's like Fifth Dawn. And like he basically like the character like bends over and like scoops up some of the black oil on his finger and kind of rubs it in his fingers. And he's just like, huh, I wonder what this is, and I wonder where it's coming from. And then they just end the book, like, just like that. And you're like, oh my god, it's Phyrexia, it's happening. It's so good. But as you can tell with my level of excitement, I love the Phyrexians. I think it's, like, the best. I'm checking something really quick. I kind of made an orange color here. And I'm kind of just trying to figure out what I'm going to try and do with it. I'm looking at another painting that I've done in the past to kind of give me a reference point as to how I'm going to try and paint this. So, okay. This is going to get a bit tricky because now I have to kind of figure out like where I want this all to be. Give me just a second here. I'm checking some more things real quick. Okay. Alright. Okay. I think I know what I'm going to do. Okay. I think I got this. Alright, so we're just going to kind of experiment a little bit here. So I'm getting this out of the way. Bring back in the painting. And, oh, sorry. Here's the card right here. I just needed it out of the way while I was mixing colors. You know how I roll. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of paint a sun. I think I'm going to put it like right here. I think it would be kind of cool to just kind of have it as like a circle right here. Just like that. Yeah, you guys can see that pretty well. That's good. And just kind of... I'm going to have to make it much darker than this. The blue is very overwhelming on this color, which is fine. All I have to do is just kind of add some more paint to it. I might also darken the yellow a bit too, or brighten it up, I'm not sure. Because I think if I just kind of lay down a layer to start with, and yeah, that's a good start. Okay, so now I'm going to lighten up the yellow a little bit. Probably I just need to add like a little bit of white to it, is probably all I'm going to do. But yeah, I love new Phyrexia, and I really want to like own more Phyrexian cards. If any of you guys were to see like my power cube, I actually have a ton of like Phyrexian cards in it, And like not all of them are from New Phyrexia. Like it's kind of like Phyrexia through the generations and things like that. Like for example, I just recently put my favorite dark ritual in my power cube, and it's the dark ritual from Phyrexia, which shows like the altar with the dead creature on it and the blood dripping down and all that, and I love that stuff. And then I have like like Yawgmoth's Bargain in there and things like that, and just all sorts of different kinds of cards that are related to Phyrexia. Because it's just my favorite. I don't know. I always I love a good villain, and in my opinion, Phyrexia is the best villain. So that's why I have it that way. And I know that I got started talking about this because I was kind of talking about a card that I'm obsessed with. I really want to get my hands on a copy of, and I already mentioned it, but I'll bring it up again just to kind of bring it back to the point. I'm trying to find a way to get my hands on a cheap copy of Batterskull. And and here's the thing is because I remember when New Phyrexia was out as a set, and everybody was obsessed with that card, and like it made perfect sense why everybody was so obsessed with it. That card is broken. It's a broken card. Even to this day, even to this very day, with all the power creep we've had, and all of the ludicrously strong cards that we've been continuously gaining over the years, like the power level of creatures is constantly going up, the power level of like spells and all sorts of things is constantly going up. But let me tell you, even to today's standard, like Batterskull is broken. It's still broken. Which makes sense why it's like $30 for a single copy of that card. Not even foil. I actually even looked at a foil copy of the card, and a foil copy is something like $50. If you buy like the regular, like if you buy the new Phyrexian foil, it's like $50 for a foil of that card. And then the regular version is like $30, which is ridiculous. But the thing is that like a card is still crazy strong. It just blows my mind because it's like there. I read some commentary about it, and like one of the best comments that I thought explained it the most thoroughly was there was somebody who basically said that it's basically a colorless Baneslayer angel. Like, without flying, obviously. But Batterskull can't fly, so, I mean, obviously, Baneslayer Angel kind of is a little... And, I mean, the funny thing, too, is Baneslayer Angel is actually considered not that great anymore, which I think is hilarious, because it's still... They used to call... Back in the day when Baneslayer Angel was the big deal, and I actually owned... I only owned one copy of Baneslayer Angel, but I used to own 3 of them. And all 3 of the Baneslayer Angels that I used to have in the past were all cracked in packs. None of them were like bought. But I ended up giving away 2 of them. Like there was a very good friend of mine who I traded those Baneslayer Angel, like 2 of the 3 that I had, I traded off to my friend. And I don't regret that at all. Like because here's the thing, when Baneslayer Angel was popular, that's when I had mine. And I was still okay with trading them away to my friend. It was totally okay. Like, I didn't care. I don't regret that at all. Because he was my friend, and, I wanted him to have them. And he gave me some good cards for them, too, anyways, so I wasn't mad about it. But I still own one, and it's in my, my Power Cube. And, I gotta check this thing. I'm referencing a couple of other cards that I painted to help me kind of establish what I'm doing here. Okay. Basically, like, I own one Baneslayer Angel, and it's still powerful. But they used to call it Wallet Slayer back in the day, because it was, like, I think there was a time where Baneslayer Angels were going between, like, just a regular Baneslayer Angel was, like, $30 or $40 a piece. And, like, which is ludicrous. They're not as good as they used to be. But I still think they're pretty strong cards. Like, there's no way that I will ever have a time in my life where I'll be like, Baneslayer Angel, what a crappy card. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I still think that card's amazing. Because, I mean, let me tell you, in my Power Cube, if you summon a Baneslayer Angel, like, you're probably doing pretty good. But yeah, like, basically my point is that I read this comment that basically said that Batterskull was basically a colorless Baneslayer angel, and I was like, you know what? That is a pretty darn good perspective on that card. And I mean, I used to not really care about it when I was, when Phyrexia was in standard, and it wasn't like I knew it was one of the chase mythics of the set, but it wasn't something I really cared all that much about. Like, I wasn't really much of a chase mythic card guy. Like, I've never really felt that way about Magic cards. Um, but I mean, at that time, it was like, oh, well, it would be cool to get this, but it's not like I'm going to freak out and do everything I can to get my hands on it. And I think that also Batterskull was like relatively the same price as it is now, so it was like this huge deal to like, try and get one and stuff like that. But, okay. Sorry, I'm just kind of once again reviewing another painting that I'm looking at. I'm just kind of figuring out where I want to go with this orange color. But like what's really weird is like I don't know why it took me so long for me to feel like that I really want to get a copy of it. And I mean, obviously, I think that it's because, hey Cinder, good to see you, man. Thanks for joining. Just working more on this painting, trying to make it look really nice. We're currently painting a sunrise slash sunset. Like, I'm kind of painting it more like a sunset because I'm referencing a painting that I've done in the past where I'm using a sunset. So I guess that's kind of like what's going on here, and that's fine. It'll look good. But yeah, I don't know, but I suddenly have this like real wanting to get my hands on a copy of the card. And I'm kind of like looking all over the place because like I generally can't find. I think the lowest price I've been able to find for a Batterskull is $30, which is like that's out of my price range. There's no way. And the problem is too is that like that's a card that I don't think is going to go down in value. I really don't. And a lot of the time when I see something like that, it's like, well, I just immediately like stop thinking about it, or I just kind of like I'll probably keep it on my watch list, but it's not something that I'm trying to like go out of my way to acquire. But I don't know why, but this was actually the point that I was making originally that got me started on this train of thought in this conversation is that for the last few days, I can't get that card out of my mind. I keep thinking about it constantly. And I want to put it in my cube, but like I don't know why I keep thinking about it all the time because like it's like I don't know, that does happen to me with some cards, and usually though is like the cards that normally do that to me, I can just acquire easily. Like I mean, most of the time like I think about that with like for example, a while ago I was thinking about the card Molten Steel Dragon, which is also from New Phyrexia. And I actually consider Molten Steel Dragon to be one of my favorite red cards of all time. And I mean, I actually managed to get a very cheap foil of it. And it was nice because once I had acquired the foil of it, I just stopped thinking about it. Um, and I really like that card a lot. But that was a card that was easier to like deal with because it's so cheap. It's like people don't actually really like Molten Steel Dragon. I think a lot of people consider it to be a not very good card. But I think it's awesome. So, I have to make more orange. I actually ran out of orange. I have some coffee. Mm. Yeah, that's true, Wrath. That's very true. Well, like, I'm going to try something real quick. It's getting really dark in my room. I'm going to turn on the lights and see if that creates a lot of glare. If it creates a lot of glare, I'll turn them back off, but if not, I might keep them on. So, let me try that real quick. How's it look on your guy? It looks like it's not that bad. I'm gonna leave these lights on. I really need to be able to see what I'm doing. It's getting very dark very quickly in my room, so I'm gonna leave the light on for a little while. There we go. Just kind of trying to get that into focus a little bit better. Yeah, it's definitely like I don't know what it is because like I have a lot of very nice because I do have some pretty expensive cards in my collection. But the thing is that like what's really cool about my collection is that most of the really expensive cards that I have in my collection, I actually most of them I either got in trades or busted them open in booster packs. So like I have like really expensive cards that I didn't pay the expensive price tag on, which is really cool. And I've never really felt like I've needed to like generally like my personal rule about buying Magic cards when I buy them online is I generally don't like to oh, that's interesting. Uh I don't like to what is it? Buy cards that are more expensive than $20. I mean I've talked about that multiple times in the past. I don't like doing that. But yeah, I guess I could show you guys what I'm doing on my palette. I'm gonna move this out of the way, and I'll bring my palette back over so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. Trades? What's that? Yeah, I know, right? Well, like to be honest, Cinder, I actually hated trading when I was younger. I hated it. And like that's actually what got me into the situation of like when I was a kid, I wanted a Sliver Queen. I went to my card shop and I bought my Sliver Queen for $20. Like that's because I hated trading. I have gotten ripped off in so many trades that it left the worst taste in my mouth for trading. I hated it. I one of my favorite stories about why like I have two stories in particular of why I can't stand trading. The first story of why I can't stand trading is when Ravnica first came out. Ravnica City of Guilds, the very first Ravnica set came out. I went to a release, and me and my friends bought a bunch of booster packs. And I cracked open a booster pack. And mind you, this is like back in my early days where I didn't understand the concepts of like card advantage. And there were all sorts of different things that I didn't understand about Magic. And one of the things that I really regret not understanding in that time of Magic was I had no understanding of how Dredge worked. Dredge made no sense to me when I was a kid, like at all. I did not understand how it functioned. I thought it was the worst mechanic in Ravnica. It made because like my thought process is, why would I want to put my cards that I want to play directly into my graveyard? What's the benefit of that? There's no benefit of that to me. Like I thought it was such a terrible mechanic. I thought it was the worst mechanic in the entire set. I thought it was crap. It made no sense to me. And the thing is that the story goes for me is I was in my comic book store, and me and my friends bought a bunch of booster packs, and we started cracking them open. And I opened a Life from the Loam, a Life from the Loam, and which to this very day is considered to be the single most powerful Dredge card ever printed. It's the best Dredge card. It's the most powerful Dredge card. I think the only other two Dredge cards that are considered crazy broken besides Life from the Loam are the Grave Troll and also I think it's called Dakmor Salvage. I think those are considered to be the two other crazy strong Dredge cards. But I opened a Life from the Loam fresh out of a pack, and I remember reading the card and I was like, this card sucks. Like, Dredge is the worst mechanic ever. Like, why would anybody want to play this card? It sucks. And, like, I was so wrapped up in how terrible I thought it was. I had a whole bunch of people, like comic book people, like comic book shop store regulars that came over to, like, see me talking about how bad this card was. And this one guy came over and was like, hey, like, if you don't like that card, I'll trade it. I'll trade you something for it. And I was like, all right, well, I mean, this card sucks, so whatever. And like, he offered me a Gozaroth, like a Gozaroth Leviathan from Ravnica City of Guilds, and he was like, here, I'll trade you this like Gozaroth for it. And I was like, whoa, this big gigantic Leviathan is so cool. It's way cooler than this crappy Life from the Loam. Like, hell yeah. And I traded that Life from the Loam for a Gozaroth. And, like, for a very long time, I never cared. I never cared. And then when I finally got older and I finally understood how Dredge worked and why Dredge was so broken, I forever kicked myself after that. Like I was so mad about it. And like I mean, you know, I don't care now, like but it was like one of those things where it's like nobody like wanted to explain to me why Life from the Loam was so good. They just wanted to get that card from me. That's all it was. Like like it was and like that's and I had a couple other examples. Like for example, I think it was like in the M10 set, they had the green powerhouse known as the Great Sable Stag. And I opened up a foil copy of Great Sable Stag. And I had a whole bunch of people who wanted it off of me, and I had this guy who basically traded me like there were a whole bunch of people who wanted to trade it, like get the foil Great Sable Stag that I opened up, and there were a whole bunch of people who were offering me stuff to like get it from me, and there was this one guy who offered me like 3 rares out of his binder, which were all crappy cards. I think the only good rare that he offered me out of the 3, and I really had to like beg it off of him, was he let me have a what's it called, a the Gilded Lotus from Mirrodin. So he let me have a Gilded Lotus from Mirrodin and like 2 other rare cards that I can't remember right now off the top of my head for a foil Great Sable Stag. And like from what I remember at that time, I ended up like finding out a little while later. Like I was happy at the time that I got 3 cards for that one card, but then I found out that Great Sable Stag was like this major deal, and it was like worth a lot of money, and like everybody wanted it, and it was a foil, so it was like double or triple the price that it actually was, and I was really upset about it. And I had lots of, and I mean that's the thing is like I can't really be that mad about it because I was the one in the end who said, yeah, I'll trade it to you. Yeah, I'll trade it to you. Yeah, I'll trade it to you. So that's my own fault. But at the same time, like, I was always really upset because nobody offered to explain to me why those cards were so sought after. Like, I couldn't comprehend it in my brain, but nobody offered to explain it to me. And here's the thing, like, I have actually been given, in the past, really powerful cards by friends of mine and or people that I knew, and they like there would be times where like I would get cards and I would think they're terrible, but they would actually take the time to explain to me why they were so good. Like for example, when I was a kid, um, hmm, I need some more yellow. Um, I had a guy who gave me a whole bunch of cards for free, and and he was really nice about it. And the whole story behind that of why he gave them to me for free is because I had all my cards stolen when I was in high school. I brought like a huge, like not all of them, but I brought like a good portion of them to school when I was in, not high school, in middle school. It was when I was like a 7th grader in middle school. And I had a whole bunch of cards stolen from me. And this guy that I didn't know very well, but I got to know him after meeting him a few times. And I mean, after a while, we never like really communicated ever again. But I still remember him as this really great, nice guy. He was much older than I was. I think he was like an older high schooler kid or something. And he was just a good dude. And I told him like all this stuff about how like all my cards got stolen. And basically what he did was he went and he got a huge bunch of cards from his collection that he didn't play with anymore, and he gave them all to me for free. And there were cards that I went through in his collection that he gave to me. Like, for example, there was one, he gave me a Mana Vault. He gave me a Mana Vault. And at that time, when I was looking at the card Mana Vault, I thought it was awful. I thought it was a terrible card. And he actually, like, I mean, obviously he was just giving it away, so he wasn't going to miss it. But he actually took the time to explain to me what made the card Manivault so good. Like, and once he explained that to me, and like I kind of had a rough time putting it together for a while, but he actually took the time to explain to me what made Manivault so good. And I still to this day have that Manivault that he gave me years ago. I still have it. But the thing is that the only reason why I still have it is because he gave me the like knowledge of like what made that card so good. And it also made me getting that knowledge from him also made me a better Magic player in the process as well. But those guys who did those trades with me, like they weren't going to tell me how good those cards were, because if they told me how good those cards were, I would have never traded them to it. I would have never traded my Life from the Loam if I knew how good it was. I would have never traded my foil Great Sable Stag if I knew how good it was. Like, those were just things that I didn't understand at that time. And I mean, like I said, they didn't want to explain that to me because they knew that if they actually took the time to carefully explain to me why those cards were so good, I would have never given them to them. And I mean, they didn't care if they were out like 3 rares that were like worth nothing, if they can have like, what is to this day like a $60 card, like that's broken as hell and abuses one of the most broken mechanics ever made, you know? So that's why I don't like trades. I stopped liking trades at a very early age. I think the last time I did a trade, like a legit trade, was I mean, I guess I did a couple of trades with my best friend not too long ago, but that's because I know him very well, and like a lot of the cards like that I gave him or traded to him, like I knew I wouldn't care about. And I knew that they were going to a person that I actually cared more than the cardboard I was giving him. So, it wasn't a big deal. Some of them were pretty good, but like I didn't care because he was my best friend, But the last time I did a trade to a stranger, like a random dude that I met in a comic book shop, was in high school. And that was a trade that wasn't very good. And that was kind of like the last straw for me. I was like, no more trading. People are shitty people. And like people who want to like make these trades with me are making these trades because they want to benefit the most from the trade and be a shitty person in the process, and they don't care about anything I do or say or whatever. I don't want to trade with you because you're probably a shitty person who wants to take advantage of the fact that I don't know anything about the card that I'm trading to you. So that's why I stopped doing trades. I was tired of getting taken advantage of all the time. And that's when I started doing all the stuff where, like, if I want something, I'll buy it. I will buy my own cards. I don't care. Like, and I mean, like I said, like, I got some pretty cool, valuable cards in the past simply because I bought them when I was a kid. I just spent the money. And I didn't care at the time. Like I said, Sliver Queen. I bought that for $20 when I was a kid. I know I always bring that up, but it's like, people always get blown away when I tell them that I bought that for $20 as a kid. Kind of makes me laugh. I played my friend's Dredge deck. It's so weird. It just wins. Yeah, Dredge is... Like, have you ever... Wrath of Wood, have you ever seen, like, Manaless Dredge? There's, like, a Dredge deck that doesn't use land at all. Like, no lands. There are no lands in the deck. Like, it just wins without land. It's so broken. Like, it's a mechanic that, like, like, it's one of those things where, like, Wizards came out and they're like, hey... We just want to let you know, like, we're sorry we invented this mechanic. It's totally broken and we should have never done it. Like, ever. So we're sorry. But yeah, Manaless Dredge. Whatever. I trade some Eldraine to a chill dude for a promo lightning bolt. That's pretty cool. That's really cool, Wrath of Wood. That's very nice. Yeah, man. Like, I mean, I have some lightning bolts, but they're all from M10. And I mean, that always cracks me up because I always, like, the M10 lightning bolts are some of my favorite because they're common cards. Lightning bolt at common in a core set. It's just like, what? It's like, yeah, it was a thing that used to happen. But yeah, I don't know. I just, like, trading is just not something I'm interested in anymore. And I mean, like, I don't know, like now that I have a lot more knowledge on Magic cards, I guess I'm okay with like the idea of trading a bit more. But like, let me tell you, like it's a totally different like kind of thought process when like you're like an adult reflecting on the fact that you were cheated so often as a kid over Magic cards. Like you're like, oh, trading's like I'm legitimately like trading is the worst because I don't like it was at a time like I was traumatized by the fact that I didn't know anything about Magic cards at that time, and nobody was willing to like teach me about Magic cards at that time. So it's just like, it's like I will say though that there was that one guy, but I didn't really like trade him anything. Like he just gave me a bunch of cards, and he was comfortable with explaining to me why the cards were the way they were. Like I learned a lot of stuff from that guy. Like that guy taught me like when I was a young kid, like he taught me a lot of stuff about like mana, like the importance of mana acceleration, which was not something I totally understood at that time. He taught me some card advantage, but like not on the level of like Dredge. Because I that guy gave me those cards before Ravnica was out, so like I didn't understand like the card advantage that Dredge provided until way later. Um, but he was a really nice guy, and he taught me a lot of things about Magic that I didn't understand at that time. And he gave me a whole bunch of cards that like he was more than happy to like teach me of why they were so good. Like for example, he gave me a another card that I love. He gave me a City of Brass, and that was one of those cards where like City of Brass is actually an interesting card because it actually teaches like it's one of those cards that actually teaches new people like like it gives new people a card that would frequently look like something that's bad, and if you do it right you can teach people like why City of Brass is so good, and then that kind of like completely changes like how they understand Magic cards, because like it's very easy to like think that City of Brass is not a good card if you're a new Magic player. Because there are a lot of people who are like, oh, like, well, I mean, specifically, like, younger players or newer players in general. Like, there's a lot of newer players who would look at a City of Brass and be like, this card hurts me to make mana? That's terrible. Why would I want to play that? I don't want to, like, hurt myself. Like, I want to, like, keep all my life points and I want to win. And it's like, and it kind of, like, City of Brass is a good card that teaches you a very complicated concept in Magic the Gathering, which is anything that turns anything that turns something that is worthless into a resource is good. So like for example, like what City of Brass teaches is that it teaches you how to use your life points as a resource. And the thing is that like one of the most interesting things you can also teach a Magic player, and it totally opens up their eyes to like new ideas of playing Magic when they understand it, is the concept like, and so it's really interesting because I mean to a lot of seasoned Magic players it makes perfect sense and it's easy to understand, but to like newer people who have never really played the game it blows their mind, is the idea of the only life point in Magic that matters is your last life point. That's it. All your other life points don't mean anything. Like you use your life points as a shield, or like you use it as a means to an end. You know, it's not supposed to be like every life point is valued. Like that's not at all what it's supposed to be. But like when you then have cards that turn your life points into a resource, like for example, like City of Brass is like one of the best examples. Like you use your life points to create mana, and mana is a much more valuable resource than a life point is. So that's like one of the most basic ways of understanding that. But like another example is like Phyrexian mana. Like Phyrexian mana turns your life points into mana. So like that's another example of like turning something that is worthless into a valuable resource. And then there's things like another great example, like one of the best examples is Necropotence. Necropotence is like a great example of that same idea, which is turning, your life points into card drawing, like which is broken as hell, as we all know. So I mean, it's just like those are really interesting concepts that like a lot of newer players don't necessarily understand. And sometimes it just takes like, a good Magic player who's, like wanting to share a fun experience and the intrigue of the game and the more complicated aspects of the game to a newer, unseasoned player. And like I said, like that guy who gave me all those cards and taught me that stuff, like he completely changed. Like first of all, like I was actually at that time, um, I almost lost interest in Magic because all those cards were stolen for me. And that guy who gave me all those cards for free single-handedly reignited my love for the game. Like he did all that stuff for me. He gave me a whole bunch of cards for free. He taught me like all sorts of new concepts about playing the game that I had never understood before. And that was a major deal. Like that changed my life. But like these people who are like, "Oh, like I'll give you I'll trade you a Gozaroth for Life from the Loam," and never explain to you like how Life from the Loam works. And it's like that guy, fuck that guy. Like it's people like that. That's the kind of stuff that makes people like bitter about trading like I am. It's just like screw you. You're a jerk. Let's see here. I kind of need. I'm kind of looking over my colors and things like that. Oh, that's weird. Huh. Okay. I'm getting like notifications on my computer that are kind of weirding me out a little bit. Let's see here. I think what I need is let me check my reference piece real quick. A Ghostbusters movie instead of Magic? What do you mean, Cinder? I'm not 100% sure I'm in tune with that particular joke. I'm not sure what you mean. I need more yellow. That's what I need. And maybe a little bit of black too. I'm just going to throw just some basic black and some yellow on my palette, so I'm not really going to show you guys what I'm doing because it's pretty simple. I mean, if I was doing some fancy color mixing, I'd show you guys, but I'm not. So I just put on a little tiny bit of black, not very much, because I know I don't need very much. Oh, Gozaroth? Like as if that's the name of like a ghost in Ghostbusters. Yeah, I can see that. If you've ever seen Gozaroth, it's not a very good card. I mean, when you're a kid who doesn't really understand what makes a good Magic card a good Magic card, like I like to say, like those were my Timmy days. Like the card looks amazing if you're like in Timmy mode, but like in actuality, Gozaroth is a terrible card. It's not very good. It's a Leviathan that's just not very good. I don't even have that Leviathan anymore. If I remember correctly, like when I finally realized that I got ripped off with that Gozaroth, I like gave it away or something. I either gave it away or I traded it off or something like that. I probably gave it away. Because I couldn't stand even looking at the card anymore because all it did was remind me of that terrible trade that I made all those years ago. Oh man. But yeah. And like I said, foil Great Sable Stag, rest in peace. I'll never see that card ever again. Alright, so I got a little bit of yellow here. I'm going to kind of throw it around in a few different areas. Okay, alright. So I'm going to kind of just put it in some stripes in some various different areas. Looks like I need a little bit more yellow. There we go. But yeah, I mean, I think that, like, we talk about how, like, a lot of the time, like, oh, the Magic community is so toxic these days. Like, I wish it was like it used to be. And it's like, I sometimes think that people don't realize that like there have always been like toxic members of like the Magic community. Like like I was mentioning with like the whole like being traded and like those trades being ripoffs for me. Like that's a great example right there of like toxic, community members. Like it's always been that way. Like I can go back way in the past and I mean, there's still people who, played Magic who were jerks. Like I even like for example, like I was talking about that deck that I have that like wins in like 3 turns. I built that deck for the purpose of beating jerks in Magic. Like that's literally its only purpose. Like I would never play that deck against friends. I used to go to comic book shops and I would carry that deck with me into the comic book shops. And I'd be like, the next person who wants to fight me with their Tinker deck, or the next guy who wants to like fight me with a deck that wins in 1 turn, like that's what that deck is for. Its purpose was literally to hose people who want to be jerks and play degenerate decks. Like that was literally the whole point of it. So I mean, like it's like I don't think that the community has necessarily gotten worse than what it was in the past. I think it's just that it's more prevalent now and like we can see it more obviously because the internet makes it so much more obvious that, we have all these people who are jerks. And I think that what it comes down to is you have to kind of treat it like we used to back in the day, which is just ignore them. Just ignore them. You know what ruined MTG for me? Counter decks. 20 counters, 1 creature. Yeah, well, those have been par from the course since 1994, my friend. Stasis. Stasis decks, my friend. Those have always been around. Oh, man. Counterspell, boomerang, counterspell, stasis, boomerang. You play nothing. Time walk. Counterspell, boomerang, time walk. Black Lotus! Coming back to Magic to play Rarity Commander MLP for life? My Little Ponies for life? Are you a brony, Pink Peacock? By the way, good to see you, man. Thanks for joining the stream. my brony friend, Pink Peacock, is in the stream. Everybody say hi. Oh, man, I'm almost out of this yellow and I need more of it. But yeah, I think that, you just kind of have to, like, accept the fact that, like, any hobby, like, it's like every large hobby that is popular is going to have its collection of, like, people that are just jerks. Like, you just have to accept that. And, I mean, just, ignore them. Like, or, like, do what I do, which is I built a deck designed for beating them up. Like... It was like it was so funny because like like the deck is literally designed around the idea of like whoever you're playing with it, they're playing a deck that is degenerate. So like for example, if you play the deck that I had, I actually even used to call it the Nerd Killer. If you played the Nerd Killer against like a casual fun deck, the Nerd Killer would actually lose a lot. Like because it had like issues like for example. There were cards that were designed for countering and controlling decks that win in the first few turns. So, like, if you weren't encountering decks that were trying to win in the first few turns, you would end up having a hand full of cards that were useless. So, like, if you played against a deck that, like, was trying to, like, ramp up in, like, if you were playing against a deck that was planning to win by like turn 5 or turn 7 or whatever, the deck that would win in like that the Nerd Killer deck would actually lose because it has so many cards that are useless in the hand. But if you were fighting decks that win in like by turn 1 or turn 2 or turn 3, the Nerd Killer would destroy them. It would tear those decks apart. So like, and that's the thing, like that was literally the whole point of it, is that it was literally designed so they could only beat up people who were playing degenerate, stupid, unfun decks. Of course, friendship is Is magic, fam. The Netflix show is magical. I'm sure it is, Pink Peacock. We know how much of a brony you are, so it's okay. You don't have to remind us. For anybody who's wondering, I'm using this yellow to kind of lighten up certain areas of the orange. It's to kind of give you the idea of refracting light across like a sunrise or a sunset. It's kind of become more sunset-ish now, but that's mostly because I'm using, like, my reference point is actually a piece for a sunset that I was doing in the past. So it's kind of like darker and has that more sunset appearance to it, which I've kind of like accepted. I'm okay with that. That's fine. Not a big deal. I ain't even mad. There we go. Oop. Oh, whatever. I don't care about that. I'm actually tempted to go to an F&M tomorrow. Well, you know what? If you do, Cinder, have fun, man. Like, just, like, forget whatever, like, just go and have fun, dude. Just go and draft and play some Eldraine and have a good time, dude, because that's what it should be about. I don't do an F&Ms because I got tired of them. Like, a long time ago, I stopped going to F&Ms. And also, like, another major thing that prevents me from doing F&Ms is simply that there's no local card game store in my town anymore. The last one went out of business. So there are no local card game stores in my town. It's, that's just how it is. That's how it ended up being. Now I need some black. Let me take a look at my reference piece real quick again. Looks like I need some black and some white. Well, let's start with the black and we'll see where that goes. Let's see. I had a video idea with a budget of $90. I will only use sealed product and get invited to a Star City open slot. Yugi tubers do this challenge? Oh, that could be interesting. Like, it's like a thing that people do in Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's like you're going to try and do it for, like, Magic the Gathering specifically. It could be interesting. Like, I think, Peacock, you were in the stream where I was talking about how important player skill is in Magic. Like, for example, like, because we were talking about people who would, like, build, like, the most powerful deck in Standard. But the thing is that if you're a better Magic player, you don't, like, the better Magic player generally is going to win if they know, like, if they know, like, for example, like, strategy, mana curve, reading the opponent, responding when it's proper, knowing when somebody's going, like, predictions as well. Like, if you're good at that stuff, like, you can be the better Magic player, who, like, who can basically beat, the better deck. Like, the better Magic player can beat the better deck. So, I mean, if you go for that, like, I wish you luck, dude. Like, that could be really fun. Okay, let's see how that looks. That looks pretty decent. I'm using very light amounts of black, and what it's doing is it's kind of defining some clouds along the sides of the yellow, which is kind of like the yellow spots I put on the orange here are supposed to be light reflecting off of clouds. So, like, adding in the black kind of also gives the more distinct appearance of, like, cloud formations up closer to the top of the yellow streaks. So it's kind of like when you're looking at a cloud in, like, a sunset, you'll notice that, like, the top part of the cloud is dark because there's no sun hitting it. But the bottom part of the cloud is, like, yellow and pink and orange and things like that because that's where the sun is hitting it. So, like, excuse me. So, like, that's where the black comes into play, is that the black is basically the top part of the cloud, and the yellow and orange is basically the bottom part of the cloud. So that's what I'm kind of setting up right here. Let's see, kind of just adding some little areas here, just to kind of better define it. Just like that. Let's see here, how does that look? That looks pretty nice, actually. Let's see. A week 90 is just enough for a box. Oh, okay. Like you're gonna buy like, does $90 buy you a box of magic cards? Like I assume you're probably gonna be buying Eldraine, right? So like, is the Eldraine boxes going for like less than 100? That's kind of interesting to me. Did not know that. I'm also going to grab some more yellow. I'm going to just kind of outline some of this area up here, just like so. Just to kind of fade out the orange a little bit. It looks kind of funky in the camera. I'm kind of using the camera as my second pair of eyes. So when I look at the camera, it looks kind of weird. So I'm going to kind of try to extend it out just a bit more. There. Just like that. Okay. Sorry, I'm just kind of like trying to get this to look a little bit more natural. Huh. Maybe also meshing the yellow with the orange a little bit more will help as well. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. I read all that stuff. Win with a shitty deck. Yeah, it is actually more fun to win with a deck that you know is not necessarily, like, you know, the top of the top. No trades, no singles. Good thing with Magic over Yu-Gi-Oh! You can do the challenge with many decks due to the nature of Magic. Yeah, I could see that. All you need is a ruler. Most sets have a ton of legends now. Looking at prices, I got 120, no standard box go that high. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wish you luck on it, dude. It sounds like it's going to be really fun. Kind of just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with what I'm working on here. Let me kind of put some yellow over that, just like that, to kind of darken it. Well, lighten it up, I should say. And I really like how this whole area is turning out. It's kind of got this nice kind of, I don't know, it's just got this really cool, like, sunset effect that I'm really enjoying a lot. Like I said, I am referencing another piece. I think what I also want to do is I want to actually add a very light amount of red. Guess you get to always tap that pony. Ew! Cinder, that's gross! Man, you filthy McNasty! That's gross. Tapping ponies? What is with all the, like, pony talk recently? I know that in, like, Mike's stream earlier today, there was, like, a conversation about My Little Pony. What is going on with everybody? What the hell is this? Get this My Little Pony stuff out of here. I don't know why this is suddenly getting all big again. That's gross. That looks cool. Okay. I'm going to add some down here as well. There. This is starting to look so cool. I really like once I started, you know what it is? It's because I love orange and yellow and red. That's why I'm enjoying this so much. Yellow is my favorite color, and I love, like, bright, like, hot, warm colors. So, like, I'm having an absolute wonderful time working on this today. It's a lot of fun. Let's kind of mesh in some red here to kind of make the orange smoother at the top with the yellow. There. God, this is starting to look so cool. I'm really happy about this one, guys. I'm really happy. I was kind of, like, nervous about it when I first started working on it. But it's, like, one of those things where, like, you know, like, you start working on it and you're not sure, like, where it's going to go or what direction it's heading. And then, like, it just, like, starts really coming together. It's nice. There is 3 My Little Pony MTG crossover cards. No! Who would do that? Who would do that kind of evil? That is evil, okay? That is evil. Mm. No, I refuse. I refuse to admit that that's a thing. I refuse it. I'm going to try something interesting real quick. Just kind of stick with me on this one, guys. It's going to get a little weird here. Adding in my Patholo Green to kind of give me a grassy look over here. I thought that would look kind of cool. I am going to go back to working on the sky in a minute, but I just really wanted to see how this looks first. So we're kind of just going to throw this in, and my Patholo Green is luckily not dried up yet. It's getting there, but I thought I would kind of use it before I knew it was completely useless. So I'm just kind of adding that in. Ew. Ew. I just now read your comment, Pink Peacock. Pinkie Pie's bae. It's like, ugh. Oh, God. I think I'm going to throw up. No! Wrath of Wood, no! No! All of you are terrible! Oh, God, why? Why? Why you do this? Why? Oh, God. No! It's a comment I can never unsee, Wrath of Wood. I can never unsee your comment, Wrath of Wood. That is awful. Oh, God. Oh, man, some of the ex-judges for MTG must be losing their selves for those ponies. Is this like a new thing? Is that what's happening? Did, like, Wizards of the Coast release a cycle of cards that are all MLP? Is that what this is all about? For shame, you guys! For shame! It's too much! Too much! Oh, God. Rarity, the pony lowers the CM of all rares and mythics by 1. Good effect, though? Are you saying that there's a pony card that says, like, all rares and all mythic rares are, like, 1 converted mana cost less? Because that is ridiculous. That is so weird. That's like something you would see out of, what is it, like an unset. Like, that's like an uncard or something. That's crazy. I have never, that's kind of like, because I've seen cards that affect, like from unsets that affect, like, you know, certain bordered cards and things like that. 3 MLP cards today. Ugh. $50 for them. You can also get sleeves for Arena for $4. They're silver bordered. See? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, man. No, thank you. I think I'm good. I mean, I'm all for, like, for example, like, them doing, like, the alternate art planeswalkers that are, like, the Japanese anime stuff. Like, that's cool. Like, I'm super into that. Like, you know, like, I'm not an MLP guy, I'm a waifu guy. I like to have my Japanese anime waifus, thank you very much. I would take that over MLP any day. Oh, man. First it was D&D, Nerf, and then Transformers, Hasbro as well. Yeah, I guess, you know what I think it is? And I think that if this is what it is, it's not a good thing. But it also makes sense. I think what's going on is, like, so let's face it, so we have the whole situation where Hasbro is actually losing lots of money right now over pretty much all of their toy franchises, right? So, like, and a major part of that was them losing Toys R Us, right? So that means that with the loss of Toys R Us, plus the fact that overall Hasbro is losing most of the money from most of their toy franchises in general, what I think is happening is because they know Magic the Gathering is one of their single largest money making franchises that they own. What I think they're doing is they're using Magic the Gathering, like the franchise, they're using it as an advertisement vector. So like they're basically like trying to advertise their other franchises by specifically advertising they're advertising their other toy franchises through Magic the Gathering. They're using it as an advertisement vector. And that's why I think they're doing all this stuff where, like, oh, we have Transformers Magic the Gathering cards. We have, like, all these, like, our Nerf card, Magic the Gathering cards. And we have, like, all of these things. And, now we're doing My Little Ponies. And they're trying to, like, hit they're basically saying to themselves, like, oh, millions and millions of people play Magic the Gathering, right? So if we advertise our other toys as Magic cards, we're out of millions and millions of people, there is likely to be people within those multiple millions who are in fact fans of our other toy franchises. So if we hit them with Magic cards that have those toy franchises in them, they might be more likely to buy our toys as collectibles when remembering that they exist through Magic the Gathering, so that way we can promote those toys and make more money. I think that's what's going on. I think that's why they're doing this. And I mean, it's smart. Like, like, I'm not into it. Like, I mean, I'm not going to go out and buy My Little Pony Magic cards or, Nerf Magic cards or whatever. Like, that's not my thing. I'm not going to do that. But, more power to them. And you know what? Maybe they'll, be able to breathe life into those dying toy franchises. Who knows? Maybe they need it. These are all meant for kitchen tables or collectors. Yeah, that makes sense. Nerf card and Grimlock were cool. Toys R Us going under in the States, but they are about to make a comeback. I mean, the thing is that, like, opening up, like, Toys R Us and stuff like that, like, it's very risky because, like, they have to take into the fact that, like, they have to open up stores again, which will cost them money. Like, they have to, like, have the power, they need the space, like, which all cost money. They need to make sure that they're able to, like, do all this stuff that requires all this money. The way that it should be done is they should just reopen Toys R Us they need to make Toys R Us into Amazon, is what they need to do. And the thing is that it makes that so hard to do is because Amazon is Toys R Us, but better. So, like, I really don't think that I could see them trying to reopen Toys R Us stores, but I think that if they do that, they're doomed to fail. Like, I think that, yeah, but, like, here's another thing too, Cinder Shadow, like, Amazon, and I know this based on what I've seen from Amazon, the Canadian Amazon specifically, Amazon is not a juggernaut in Canada. Like, it's totally, like, the thing. It's the thing in America. But, like, the Canadian Amazon is, like, so tiny and limited. Like, I've actually noticed that. I remember I was surfing around on Amazon, like Canadian Amazon, specifically because I was shopping for something for Mike. And there were multiple things that I was trying to find to buy Mike on Canadian Amazon that I couldn't get because Canadian Amazon just simply didn't have it. And, like, but Amazon did have it. Like, the American Amazon did in fact have it. So, I mean, I think that Toys R Us in Canada is surviving because it still has its place in Canada. But, like, in America, that shit doesn't fly here anymore. Like, we're in a time, like, in America specifically, we're in a time where internet business is everything. Like, stores in my local area are falling apart. Like, the mall is basically non-existent. Like, we have a mall, but it's pretty much non-existent. Like, we have some stores, like, our downtown area has some stores and stuff, like mom and pop shops that are, like, just barely surviving. They're just keeping their head above the water. But, like, internet business is everything. Like, I can't even tell you, like, the mail trucks that come around my apartment complex are dropping off like 10 to 12 packages every day, like for our apartment complex. Everybody shops online. Like, and that's just how it is. Like, I mean, I really don't think that if Toys R Us were to reopen, I don't think it would survive. Like, I really don't. Like, it's lucky that you guys still have them in Canada, but I mean, I bet you that they're just barely surviving in Canada. And if they reopened here in America, they would just flat out fail again. Like, I really think that. Oh, that's okay, dude. I was just basically saying that, like, I don't think that Toys R Us can really survive anymore. I really don't. Um, I was gonna add some more colors, but I think I'm gonna wrap it up. It's been about 2 hours. I'm seeing an hour and 54 minutes, and that's my 2 hour mark, which is where I'm trying to stop at. So we'll come back and we'll finish this up probably in the next stream. I'm probably gonna do a stream tomorrow. I can't guarantee that. Don't take that as a promise. But I will be trying to stream tomorrow if I can. Um, so that's probably what I'm going for. But I actually really like the level of work that we got done on here. Like, I know I was ranting and talking a lot and having a pretty deep set of conversations today, but I actually do feel like there was a lot of stuff done. I really like what was accomplished in this for today, and we'll just continue it later. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for coming out. I'm going to say all the normal stuff I say, which is, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you guys can know when I'm streaming. Um, I have a mailing address where if you guys want to send me some fan mail or whatever, you can find the mailing address in the description below. I have a PayPal account, so if you want to donate money or if you want to talk to me about a commission, please contact me in the public Discord, which has the same name as the channel. You can contact me through there, and then we can arrange something to be done, and then you can pay me through PayPal when it is arranged. Um, Thank you so much, Cinder. I'm glad you guys are liking how it's coming out. I'm having a great time painting this. This is a lot of fun for me. It's been a long time since I've done a full altar, so this has been great. And I think this is the first time I've done a full altar on stream. So I think that's pretty much all I want to say. So thank you guys all so much for coming out. I will see you again in the next stream, which will hopefully be tomorrow. And like I always like to say, thank you guys so much. Follow your dreams, guys, okay? I'll see you guys later. Take it easy. Aw, thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for coming out. You rock, dude. Thank you so much. You rock. You guys all rock. Take it easy. Bye, guys.